We'll call the meeting to order. All present, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item D, this is not needed tonight as it has been resolved. Item E, public comment. At this time, I will recognize those members of the public who have indicated a desire to address the council. Upon recognition by me, persons may address the council, first stating their name and address. The council may act on any emergency matters introduced by members of the public. Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Are there any public comments? Seeing no public comments, we'll move on to F, approval of minutes. May 5th, 2022, special meeting CIP, May 10th, 2022, regular meeting, and May 19th, 2022, special meeting CIP. Motion by Wagner, second by Fisher. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Thank you. All A's. G, staff updates. Upon a staff retention wages requested by Councilmember Fisher, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee meeting, we had discussion about a possible increase in staff wages. The wage scale adjustment as of July 1st, it would be in excess of the 1% that had been budgeted, part of the approved 2022 budget. I was asking that the committee consider going to 2% based upon, in large part, the inflation rate being as high as it is, up around 8.5% these days. And the committee tabled it. It's going to come back on the agenda for the 2 and 7th meeting. They did ask for some good information about how this could potentially affect the starting point for the 2023 budget. But subsequent to that, Councilmember Fisher did ask if I'd address this under staff updates. I ran this by Mayor T-Strake, and she was fine with that as well. I really don't have a whole lot to report. I guess the thought in mind and the reason it's been presented is it's one piece of the puzzle. Certainly it's one piece of the puzzle. We've seen some people leave here in recent months. We've talked about what may have led to some of those departures, and I think I reported too that there have been a number of different things. Some people have just gotten other positions more fitting for what they are pursuing in their careers, opportunities in the private sector and other places. Some people have retired, and there have been a variety of reasons for people moving on. But certainly I won't deny that compensation, keeping up with our pay plan, especially in tough times like this, is a factor. So I won't say that this is the reason that we've seen people leave, but I will say that that it is important, broadly speaking, that we do whatever we can to keep up on the compensation plan that we've adopted and make sure that we're treating our employees fairly. That's really all I have to report. I don't know if Councilmember Fisher has anything to add to that, but I just want to let that be known as a follow-up. And it will be back on the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee agenda in 2 weeks for further review.
Anybody else make a comment? Otherwise, we'll move on to H. My comments, the employee recognitions. Tim Rasmussen, Street Division, 20 years. Congratulations, Tim. Kathy Baker, Library, 35 years. Congratulations, Kathy. And Ross Gessert, Wastewater, 5 years. Congratulations, Ross. Moving on to I, council comments. Any council comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to J, reports from commissions, boards, and committees. K, consent agenda. Receive, place on file, approving recommended agendas. Motion by Alderman Fisher, second by Tompkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes. Yes.
All 10 A's. Thank you. Item number L, action on items removed from the consent agenda, if any, and there are none, so we can move on. Item M, first reading of ordinance number 1479, changes to Chapter 15, Building Code, presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works.
Thank you. This was presented to the Board of Public Works last week, and there are 4 simple changes that I'd like to just review with you tonight. This is a first reading, so there's no action on this tonight, but if there are questions, we'd be happy to answer them. In the meantime, final action would be at the next council meeting. The first change would be removing an exemption from our building permit requirements for re-roofing of residential dwellings and accessory structures. Currently, the code says that if you're just doing a re-shingling of your house, you don't need a building permit for that. This would change that and require a basic permit for that purpose. A couple of reasons for that. One, a big one is simply record keeping. We often get people who are looking to buy a house, want to inquire about building permit activities on a home before they buy it. They ask, when was the house last re-roofed? And we don't have record of that. In the past, we haven't kept track of that kind of thing. We have some, every once in a while we encounter homes that are not being re-roofed correctly. There's a limit on how many layers of old shingles you can put on a house. Sometimes they try to exceed that, and then they've overloaded the roofing or the structure of the roof. And then the steel roofs are becoming more common these days. While they're not complicated, they are different than shingling, and there are some nuances there that require some inspection. So we felt it was of value to require a permit for these reasons, and that would be one of the changes in this code. The second, under permit requirements, is adding an exemption for small alterations in occupancies of I, institutional. That's your clinic and healthcare services. If the plans are approved by the Department of Health Services. Often these clinic settings have to be reviewed by a state agency. If that's being done for these small alterations of less than 1,000 square feet, there wouldn't be a need for our staff to review those through a permit process. Another change would be in section 1509, adding a penalty provision if someone were to occupy before a temporary or permanent occupancy certificate was issued. Once in a while, someone would try to sneak into a space before the certificate is issued. This would be an offense that could result in a citation if that were to occur. The next section was under Board of Appeals. If you remember, we amended the plumbing code a few meetings back, and we added a section in there about how to deal with a situation where an applicant was questioning or challenging the ruling of an inspector. This would refer that matter to the Zoning Board of Appeals rather than creating a new board simply for that purpose. We already have a Zoning Board of Appeals that could be used for this purpose. Doesn't happen very often, but this would be a way of addressing that's already in place. And then the last change would to amend some references in the property maintenance code of how we are referring to property maintenance standards. Standards have been in the code for a number of years. This simply updates the references to current sources. So there was a red line version in your packet as well as the ordinance. Tonight, again, there is no action, but we'd be happy to take any questions. If I can't answer them tonight, I will have Pat get us answers for our meeting in 3 weeks.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Next up, first reading for ordinance number 1475, rezoning property at 1104 East Daggy Street from SR6 to TR6, presented by Stephen Wiley, City Planner.
Thank you. So this item is just a simple rezoning of a single residential parcel. And you should have in your packets the staff report showing the subject site surrounded by Madison Elementary to the north, and then mostly single and two-family residential properties around the subject parcel. So currently it's zoned single-family residential 6, so SR6, and the applicant is just looking to rezone it to TR6, so two-family residential, just to allow a little more flexibility because he wants to construct a duplex on the subject site. Right now it's vacant, and it has been since 2019 when the previous dwelling unit was demolished. So he just would like to redevelop it with a new duplex. It would be consistent with the future land use recommendation in the comprehensive plan. The future land use recommendation is medium density residential. And so a duplex would be in keeping with that. The TR6 zoning designation is found in other areas of that neighborhood. So This would not be a spot zone. It is, there is precedent for doing this as some of the other parcels are zoned that. So with that, we would not recommend anything at this meeting because this is just the first reading of this. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, you'll see this in the the next council packet.
Any questions? Tomke?
I'm just wondering if it would be more efficient to make the entire block potentially multifamily, so that then people wouldn't have to come back for every parcel.
It would be a possibility. Two-family residential does allow for single and two-family duplex, two flat. It does allow a little bit more flexibility in what's constructed on the parcel. We might have to check some of the lot sizes just because there are minimum lot sizes and lot areas for two-family versus single-family, but it'd be something we could look at.
Anyone else? Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Item O, request to approve budget resolution number 07-2022, increasing 2022 adopted budget for TIF District Number 12, East Yellowstone Industrial Park by $438,000. Purchase of land for industrial development, presented by Dan Connect, Director of Public Works.
Thank you. You'll know that staff has been working to secure additional land for our Yellowstone Industrial Park for the last year and a half or so, primarily working with the University of Wisconsin to acquire approximately 124 acres of land that was associated with the former agricultural research station on East 29th Street. And this dates back a while. Back in 2002, the city obtained an option to purchase this land from the UW Board of Regents, and that option expires in 2022 here. So back at that point in time, the city paid $250,000 as part of a bigger project to complete the relocation of that research station to its current site in Marathon County. There were some other things the city gained out of this deal from back then. So this is one of the final pieces of that agreement. But back in February of 2021, the council authorized staff to execute that 2002 option to purchase. And that was done in July of 2021. And from there, each party obtained an independent appraisal for the land. The two appraisals were then averaged with the resulting value established at approximately $5,558 an acre. So the total purchase price for that 123 acres was just over $687,000. Subtracting the $250,000 that we had paid previously leaves a balance of just short of $438,000 that would be due this year. The closing is anticipated by June 30th of this year. So the budget resolution in your packet would add that amount of $438,000 to this year's budget. That amount would be paid through long-term debt, which that borrowing will occur yet this year. And this is a TIF eligible expense in TIF 12. With that, I recommend approval of budget resolution 07-2022.
We have a motion by Tompkins and second by Hendler. Any discussion? Let's vote, please. Alderman Wagner?
Yeah, thank you. It notes in the description that this money is going to be borrowed as part of our annual borrowing.
Yes.
That's pretty short time limit for the closing. Are we going to be cash flowing it out of other funds until that closes?
I see Jennifer shaking.
Jennifer, where are you? Oh, there you are.
The answer is yes, yes.
Oh, I didn't see the, thank you very much.
Okay.
Anyone else? Now we can vote.
No.
We have 9 ayes and 1 nay. Motion passes. Thank you, Dan. Request to approve budget resolution number 08-2022, increasing 2022 adopted budget for a transferring expense to the capital project fund by $15,000. Increasing 2022 adopted budget for transferring revenue to the general fund by $15,000 and increasing 2022 adopted budget for the public facilities capital outlay by $15,000 for purposes of providing additional funding to replace a chiller at UWSP Marshfield campus, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. The city and Wood County jointly own the buildings and grounds upon which is the UWSP Marshfield campus. As a result, we have obviously a vested stake, a vested interest in seeing that those buildings and grounds are maintained, and we participate in capital projects. Oftentimes you see those in the annual capital improvement program. In last year, the 2022 to 2026 CIP that was approved, and also the 2022 budget that was approved by this body, included $90,000 for replacement of a 200-ton chiller at UWSP Marshfield campus. This is something they've talked about for a while. They've had some struggles with maintenance in the past. So the project, if you can picture it, is a total $180,000, with Wood County paying $90,000 and the city paying $90,000. So going out for quotes this spring to try and make this project happen, Brian Panzer, who works over at UWSP, found what a lot of us are finding, and that's between inflation and some other issues with supplies, the cost had gone way up. In fact, for a $180,000 item, he got quotes of $280,000 and $315,000, causing them to go back to the drawing board a bit. So after doing some digging, they came up with a 150-ton chiller, smaller unit, but with 6 circuits and better able to handle when one of the circuits goes down, and to be able to continue to provide service for the campus. So they feel very good about it. I think it's got great efficiency. This product would be $210,000 to be purchased and installed, so $30,000 more than the original unit. In order to make this work, the city and county would each have to chip in another $15,000. That's the request that he came to Jennifer and me with about 3 weeks ago. The issue was brought to the Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee. They were supportive of this. I should note that as part of this, their 2025 request also to replace the chiller is being pulled off the table. So that CIP item is now gone. In fact, it was pulled off at the last council CIP meeting from the list. So we believe it's appropriate. I understand from Donna Rosar of Wood County that it's moving through the process in Wood County to get their approval for the additional $15,000. And my recommendation is that you would approve Budget Resolution 08-2022, transferring another $15,000 for the project to be able to complete it in 2022.
We have a motion by Alderman Fire and second by Tompkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
9-1. Thank you. Item number Q, request to approve resolution number 2022-15, authorizing the exclusion of the Department of Natural Resource Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement, presented by Nicholas Cumm, Marshfield Utilities General Manager.
Good evening, thank you. Tonight I come forth with resolution 2022-15 for looking for approval. This is very similar to the resolution that we have come forth the last number of years as the DNR has provided us funds. In this situation, DNR has provided us a loan with principal forgiveness up to $675,000 for replacement of private-led services. These dollars go direct to the property owners that have private-led services to cover the cost of their side of replacement. As I've done in the past, if you're to approve this, we'll reach out to the customers that are impacted, let them know that this program is available to them, and continue to encourage them and try to get them to replace their lead services when they can take advantage of these dollars. So I recommend approval of resolution 2022-15.
We have a motion by Hendler and second by Wagner. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
10-0. Thank you, Nick. Number R, request for council authorization to appoint new Human Resources Director, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, Jennifer Ake, our former HR Director, turned in her resignation back in January. Her last working day was in February, so we've been without an HR Director for 3 months now. We did go ahead and interview 4 candidates in I think the latter part of March, and the top candidate turned us down, had taken another job elsewhere, and the search team decided at that point that they wanted to look for other applicants before moving forward with any of the other candidates that they met with. So we went out and reposted the position. We got authority from this body to actually use Westfall Staffing in Wausau to help us recruit. They've been beneficial to us as well. And late last week, we interviewed 4 more candidates for the position of HR Director. We are currently working with the information we got from those and trying to get somebody on board, but we aren't there quite yet. So because we have 3 weeks between this meeting and the next meeting of the council on June 14th, I'm asking for your permission to move ahead at some point with the appointment. If you look at policy 3-800, it does say that the search team's recommendation must be approved by the full council when we're talking about a department or division head. And that would apply certainly to the human resources director. So normally it would be this body who makes that final appointment. And again, the reason I'm bringing this forward is because the team that included 2 members of this body, we had Ed Wagner was on the team, and who am I forgetting? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Nick, I apologize. I should have put that in my notes. And Nick Peschel was with us as well, and I think we felt good about multiple candidates. So it's not like we're just focusing on one. We saw several potentials to get this position filled, and we definitely don't want to wait unduly. So for that reason, I'm asking for your permission that once we've nailed it down and got that top candidate finalized, that we can go ahead and appoint somebody. That would be my recommendation tonight.
Motion by Tompkins, second by Peschel. Any discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Yes.
9-1, thank you. Number S, receive report on which city meetings, committees, boards, commissions are now being filmed and why, requested by Councilmember Fisher at the last meeting, presented by Steve Barg, City Administrator.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the first of 2 items that were brought up at the end of the last meeting under items for future agendas. And so we bring them to you tonight for reports and to take any feedback and comment that you might have. Councilmember Fisher had asked about what meetings we film and why those meetings in terms of all the committees, boards, and commissions that we have in the city, and there are certainly numerous ones. Right now, besides the council meeting, which we obviously do, we do the main council subcommittees, as I often call them, Board of Public Works, Finance, Budget, and Personnel Committee. We also cover Plan Commission, Fire and Police Commission, and more recently, the Economic Development Board and the Marshfield Utilities Commission. That was discussed back in December, those last 2, and those were agreed to be added based upon the fact that they have pretty significant authority, in many cases apart from the council, statutorily or through code, and therefore it seemed more important to have those covered rather than advisory committees whose recommendations come up through the ranks of other committees. Also at that same time, we were running on a department of 1. That was before David joined us in the communications department. Back in December, it was only Tom Laux as the communications coordinator, basically running that department as a one-man band. So it seemed like he was spread pretty thin in terms of trying to cover just the basics of what we were doing. So like I said, you can make the argument that there could be other committees and boards and commissions. They're all important. Those are the ones we rested on based upon authority that seemed in many cases to be apart from what the council has the ability to override, or, it has to go to the council. I bring it to you for your discussion tonight.
Alderman Fisher?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make one correction. I know I asked for a lot of things, but I did not ask for this, so.
I thought you.
No, I think that was my colleague to the left. So just to set the record straight.
I apologize.
Alderman Witzel?
Thank you. I did ask for this to be on the council meeting.
Well, you guys sit next to each other, so. Yeah.
That was the other Wagner. The other guy.
Anyway, I think it's important for the community to understand perhaps why things have changed. There was a time when, for example, Judiciary and licensing was filmed, and that's no longer filmed. And I think it's important for the community at large to understand why certain decisions were made. I think at this point I would stop at the Judiciary and Licensing Committee and see if we can get some clarification as to why the change occurred with that particular committee. And perhaps the public doesn't realize that the nature of that committee has changed, with some authority going to the city clerk, and that perhaps it would be beneficial if somebody could explain that. And I don't know if that's something that Tom can explain. I don't know if he's busy filming right now, or.
Yeah, I don't know if Tom could explain that. I'll take a stab at it. You're right. We maybe want to review that, given the city clerk given some authority tacked on his or her own. I do know that oftentimes it seems like when you look at their agendas, they do go into closed session with respect to hearings. But then, we go into closed session here at council and finance and board too. So I guess we can just look into why that might be not filmed.
Alderman Wagner?
Thank you. This is just a little housekeeping method. Did this wasn't approved on December 21st, 2022, because it's not there yet. So I assume you're talking about
21.
December 21st of 2021. So can we just all agree that we did this not in the future? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good catch, Ed. Thank you. Alderman Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor. Just got a couple comments. I personally think it should be in the best interest of the city to film as many meetings as possible. I think our constituency should have access to our meetings. And I know the argument can be made, these are all public meetings, they can attend. But I think a few things. One, COVID taught us there might be times we do not want everyone to be coming to a public space. I also think we also need to understand that there are people with different just disabilities, different reasons that they do not feel comfortable coming into a public space or coming to a public meeting, but if they have an interest, they should be able to view those meetings. And so it's my personal opinion that we try in the future, and I'm not gonna do anything today, but I think the council needs to, at some point, have a conversation with whether that's Tom or whether that's the communications committee and push for more meetings being filmed. I know in the past, I asked for Marshfield Utilities and the Economic Development Board to be filmed because I had a constituent who was interested in seeing those meetings. And because of their age and some disabilities, they were unable to attend. So I just think this is something that we need to have an ongoing conversation about. And government should be as transparent as possible, so we should have those meetings filmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Spiros?
I do want to request that Parks and Rec be reported. And that comes after several people contacted me from my district. And I think that's an important one because the community is really involved in the Parks and Rec. And I think that you get more community involvement using our parks and recreational facilities than anything else. And I would really, really like to see that one reported for the request of residents who live in the city of Marshfield.
Alderman Wagner.
Thank you. After hearing Mr. Fisher, it occurred to me that one of the things that we need to be sensitive of is, especially with the licensing committee, with the Judiciary and Licensing Committee, oftentimes we'll be hearing things in a quasi-judicial manner. And basically, we want to make sure the rights of the citizen or the applicant for a license are preserved. And sometimes those are some very, very sensitive issues, some very sensitive legal charges and things like that. I can see and I can understand why, first of all, they should be in closed session, but remember, we give the appellant the option of appearing in open session. And sometime in that open session, under this idea of having it constantly shown, that might damage the reputation unfairly of somebody who has been accused of something but not convicted. So I think I can understand the hesitancy to film that one. And I think that there are times when it should not be broadcast to the public at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you for your comments. Steve?
Yeah, we'll take a look at both the JL committee and the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Committee as possibilities and get back to this body. I mean, the only thing I would suggest as one more comment, and maybe I made it in my initial comments, is that whatever we do, it's got to be subject to the availability, the time and resources of the people involved, because even with a now full-time communications specialist working with them, it's a pretty small department. But I get what you're saying about the importance of other committees, so we'll definitely look at those.
Thank you. Item T, receive report regarding bathroom facilities, temporary and permanent, now being used in the city's parks, including the degree of usage and hours of availability, presented by Justin Casperson, Parks and Recreation Director. Uh-oh, homework. Thank you.
I'll send it in the mail. Sorry, Rebecca, I don't have a handout for you, okay? This is requested by Alderman Tompkins, correct? I believe you wanted to know more information on our public restrooms in our park facilities. So I have a handout for you guys to look at, as well as I'll talk through it. I kind of broke it up into 4 sections. So there's a top section, kind of a small middle section, a larger summer section, and a bottom one. We have 17 locations in the city with public flushable toilets and 42 separate men's and women's or family-style restrooms. We have 4 portable toilets at 4 separate locations. The first section is a year-round facilities. Those are operating obviously year-round. Wildwood Zoo is the one that's the most recent constructed. We have 2 facilities, 1 men's, 1 women's. You have the dates and times in there. The dates and times fluctuate based on our daylight hours. We have the 2nd Street Community Center. We have 4 facilities there, and those hours are Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. We have the cemetery, which has 2 facilities, and that's open Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. till 2:30 p.m. Down below that, we have private rentals. These are for usually open or only open during an event or activity by a renter. We have the Wildwood Station, which has 2 facilities. And then we have the Oak Avenue Community Center, which has 3 facilities. The next one is the winter facility, which is only open during ice skating, and that's the Pickle Pond. We have 2 facilities, and that's during the winter months. It does fluctuate based on a time of year and the season and when we're operating, but it's typically Monday or weekdays 5 to 8 and weekends 11 to 8. The next section is summer only, so these are more seasonal for the traditional time of year. We try to get these open up around April 15th, and they typically close shortly after Halloween. They're open daily, so every day, 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. And they have automatic locks, so they automatically open and then they automatically lock at night. We have Wildwood Park, which has 2 facilities, Gracie Park, 2 facilities, Brame, 2 facilities, S.J. Miller has 2 facilities, Reese Baseball Field has 2, Hamas has 2, Weber has 2, and then we have a contractor cleaning. It's a 5-year annual renewal. It costs about $17,000 a year to clean those facilities. Summer only during operating hours. So we have some facilities that are just open for usage, like a rental or occupancy. And those are manual locks, so the user themselves has to open it as well as lock it whenever they're done. And that's the Mac Park, which is the softball fields. We have 2 facilities there. Usually they're open for evening games with the adult and youth softball games. Columbia Bandshell has 2 facilities, and whenever that is being occupied or used, that individual opens up those restrooms and then closes them. The Hackman Baseball Field has 2 facilities, and that's usually open like during high school play, chaparrals, American Legion, or tournaments. And then Van de Hey Waters is open during operational hours during the summer. We have 6 facilities there. We do have 4 portable toilets that are set out around May 1st and collected sometime after Halloween. One's at the UW, one's at Forest Ridge, one's at Wenzel, and then one's at the Upper Pond. The portable toilet cost is of $250 a month. So you got the numbers there at 4 units, 6 months, about $6,000 a year. So Alderman Tompkins, I try to do my best to try to satisfy what you are hopefully looking for, but I'm open for any questions.
That was great. Thank you so much. I do have, and the reason I asked for this is I've had a lot of constituents talk to me about bathrooms in the parks and bathrooms that are locked when they are at the park and things like that. So it's super helpful for me to be able to relay to them like, oh, this is the dates it's open. I do have a few questions, and the reason I also brought it up to the council is I felt like as a group, should we discuss whether some of these things should be extended or some of these services extended for our citizens? So there's a couple that I would just highlight. One is that the automatic locks, they open on April 15th, but I know that by March, people are walking around the parks. And anytime anyone's using the parks, they so appreciate it if the bathroom is open. I know that they don't have heaters. Do you know if we could open those earlier than April 15th? And can we close them by Thanksgiving instead of Halloween?
That is our biggest challenge. Those facilities are not designed to be heated, so we run a risk of pipes freezing and breaking, which will cause quite a bit of damage, so we try to avoid that. We understand it's sometimes an inconvenience for those park users, but at the same time, we have to balance what may happen if pipes do freeze. So we kind of have to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success.
When we start to talk about permanent bathrooms at Wenzel Plaza, will we talk about heated bathrooms since we have an ice skating rink?
Yeah, we'll probably look at heating those because of the ice skating that's there in the winter.
Yeah, okay.
And the heat usually is around 55 degrees. So it's not like it's 72 and warm in there.
Yeah. The other question I have is for the porta potties. I would make a request if I could that somehow, I'm not quite sure how to do this, that Parks and Rec would look into putting a porta potty at Benedict Park. I don't know whose district that is. It's by Walmart, near Walmart. That's a little park that is sized for preschoolers. And even when I went there last week and talking to one of the moms, she was like, oh, it's my first time here. She usually drove her car. You could see her car. And she said, I was just thinking, where are my kids going to go to the bathroom? So I don't know how to request that, but that would be an ideal addition at that park just because of the size and who it's catered for. The other question I have is, how much would it be to winterize those porta potties by putting antifreeze in so that we could extend it from March until the end of November, just for those?
You mean year round?
Well, so right now it opens May 1st, but could we push it up to like April 1st and back to November if we put can the company put antifreeze in?
Yeah, we currently do put porta johns at some of our locations based on special events. So our luminary hikes, we had some out as well as at ice skating for Wenzel. So it can be done. It's just a budgetary item that we'd have to account for. It'd be appropriate to probably do it during this year's budget process.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that extending it, people are definitely out in the parks in April. So extending it for April, and they're definitely out in the parks until November before the snow comes. So that was just my request. I don't know if anyone else has comments.
Any other comments? Thank you, Justin.
You're welcome.
Item U, request to appoint Mary Baszler to the Plan Commission, presented by me, your mayor. In your packet, you have her request. Hope you've all read it. And we will bring this forth at the next meeting, June 14th, to make it final. Next up, we'll adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statutes, Chapter 19.85, 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specific public businesses, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Development agreement for a residential project in TIF District 13 upon an of right-of-way for Lincoln Avenue project and possible assistance for a project located within TIF District number 10. Motion by Witzel, second by Varsho. Vote, please.
Yes.
All A's. Thank you.